Hello everyone, this is Peter Svidler using a rest day the way the rest day is not really supposed to be used. I think I've just recorded the recap of game 8 of the match, and now I'm doing a Banter Blitz, and I even have streaming plans for later today, which I might mention towards the end of this stream. So yeah, I'm not sure, to be honest, why am I doing this to myself. And take advantage while you can. I have a feeling I will not be, at least in the beginning, I might not be as fresh and uh, as threatening of an opponent as I can be. So for all of you people out there planning to challenge me today might be today might be your day. A quick check in chat if you can hear me, and then we can proceed from there, because as usual I'm not entirely sure I pressed all the correct buttons here. Let me just check if there's any problems with the tech things, and we'll go into the action. Seems like everything is reasonably fine. Yeah, the match. For those of you who, for some reason, decided to watch the Banter Blitz but are not watching the World Championship match, the match has been interesting but weird, and in particular after Game 8. And I do feel a bit weird talking about the match again after just spending an hour recapping Game 8 and also doing this live for the majority of the games. But people seem to be still interested in what I have to say on the subject. The match is not really going according to what I expect, mainly to my eyes, because I haven't seen Magnus play such inconsistent chess in an important event, maybe ever. And that's not to take away anything from Sergei's play. You can only play what's in front of you, and he's been doing that quite well. But Magnus is, very far from his best, and he seems to. I mean, he obviously is aware of that himself. But in Game 8, I think he, for some reason, decided to go for broke. Decided that the sequence of draws is way too long and way too annoying to play another correct, calm game, and he at some point overpressed and should have lost objectively. And then, even after getting reprieved, he very uncharacteristically lost an unpleasant but simple position he should not have lost. And it will be very interesting what the last the water is called Magnus, actually. That's the water of choice in the Chess24 office. It's not a troll or anything. There's stacks and stacks of them in the closet here, and that's what everybody drinks in the Chess24 offices. It seems to be a popular water in Hamburg in general. You can buy it in coffee shops and so on and so forth. It's not really. It's got nothing to do with Magnus Carlsen, but we wanted to show you that because I also occasionally drink it on stream, and people were suggesting to me that maybe it's vodka, but it's not vodka. It's the Magnus water. And now I completely lost my train of thought, but yeah, with only 4 games to go and Magnus trailing, this promises to be a very, very exciting conclusion, because he now will have to take greater risks, perhaps maybe slightly change his opening approaches. And for Sergei, since he was playing his entire match strategy seemed to be playing sort of from counterattack, to play solidly and expect that something good will happen eventually. Now that he doesn't have to win any more games, I expect that strategy to only get reinforced. He will take even fewer risks and with white, and Magnus has not really been exactly pressing with white himself. So we'll see what happens, but it will not be boring. That's the one thing I can say is that it will not be boring. The last 4 games will be very, very interesting. And I think that's enough for an intro, because I'm not going to be doing a very long banter today. I'm frankly kind of tired, and also, as mentioned, have further plans for the evening, which I would very much like to stay somewhat fresh for. So let's start playing, I guess. And yeah, since the questions already are coming in, I am still playing Hearthstone, and I will be, for those 5 people out there who will understand all these words, I will be doing a co-op run with Shady later today if you want to watch that. Since it will be mainly Shady who will be playing, there won't be even that many misplays. Okay, and now to chess. So we're starting with the Sicilian on the white side. It seems I chose, there was probably a bit of a misclick because I was aiming for, no disrespect to my opponent, but I generally, for the first couple of games in the session, I aim for players with somewhat higher ratings to try and get to play those games whilst I still remember what my name is, but not complaining, just saying that wasn't the intended opponent. I'm not sure g6 is a very critical move here. Bishop b7 in general is maybe not the most critical reply to the Keres, but g6 in particular I think is a bit of a waste of a tempo. Thanks for the question, Grondilu, but I feel like a knight db5 already may have been a very strong option, but after e5 it is almost winning now because black needed to have the knight e5 move available to him now to at least create a threat of knight f3 check. Thanks for the question, Grondilu, but I don't really... I mean, qualifying for the candidates again will be extremely difficult. I've already done it, you know, twice via the World Cup and once via being a federation nominee, and I don't think candidate tournaments are likely to be held in Russia again, which kind of rules out the the second pathway. And whilst my example shows that qualifying a number of times via the World Cup is not impossible, few people know as well as I do just how hard that is. So it's not that I'm ruling myself out of contention, but I feel that it will not be easy for me to get there again. But yeah, Magnus does look very, very human in this match. And yeah, this is now totally winning because knight bc7 will just pick up a lot of material. Black probably should play queen d8, but it's an extra exchange for no compensation. I think I may have mentioned it in some interviews, and once again, that's not meant as any kind of disrespect to Magnus, who is a great, great chess player, but I somehow felt that for my style of play and for me personally, getting to the candidates and winning the candidates is at least as difficult, and maybe subjectively maybe even more difficult than playing a match against Magnus. I mean, I'd be an underdog in both, but I played a number of the candidates tournaments, and I have some experience. I can judge, and they don't come easy for me at all. Not that a match would be easier, obviously. And yes, I think since we're continue talking about the match, I think Magnus was becoming a bit frustrated with the long drawing sequence that happened between games 1 and 7. I have the window open in the office, and Please tell me if you can, if let's say the motorcycle which just passed by the window is greatly annoying, and then I might take a bit of a pause and close the window. But I would like some fresh air in the studio, if it's not that horrible. Not a lot to commentate about the game I'm currently playing. From this moment onwards, it's completely winning for white. So. I sort of prefer 4 minutes as a bit of a compromise between 5 and 3. I think in particular against strong players, if I play 3 minutes and I semi-care about the result, it becomes a bit too hasty, and I probably, if I want to play well, I probably have to shut up at some point. And 5 is a bit too long. But challenging me with 4 minutes actually requires doing it manually, so I can't really insist on people doing that. Yeah, now I collect the remaining pieces actually. All of them. But as already mentioned, this game has been over for a while. Okay, let's see what else is in the list. Almost picked a non-premium there. I should try and not make that mistake. And yeah, I generally do try not to play people I've played before, but the list is so long, and figuring that out is so difficult that I will end up, I think, playing people I have a score against. Although I can't see that score. No, Marcel didn't have to resign. People are perfectly entitled to play the game out to the fullest. I'm not complaining. I'm just saying that the position kind of lost interest once I was a rook up with a continued attack. Whoops. I touched briefly on Magnus leaving the press conference in my video. I think, well, it probably will end up being a costly decision for him, but he is not, I think, going to be horribly affected by the thought of losing some money. And I can understand it on a human level very, very easily, because it's very, very difficult to muster the, I think generally you get this position with the knight on f6 and the bishop on g2, which allows white to play knight c2. If I play knight c2 here, he has e3, although maybe I shouldn't be that worried about it. It's very understandable, but it also is probably, I mean, I haven't seen the contract, but it probably is in breach of contract. So as a player who has been in this situation more than once, I can definitely relate, but you have to also consider it from the viewpoint of the organizers and so on and so forth. So I can play d3, but it's kind of boring. I still probably have to, because b4 and bishop b2 I still don't... I would like to actually castle long here, but it's not that easy to achieve. But maybe we can try. because it leads to more interesting positions if I manage to castle long. I played the Trompovsky and/or Collie. Well, not the Trompovsky, but Collie for sure. I played my entire childhood, as I mentioned yesterday on stream, so I don't feel like, you know, revisiting that ground is particularly interesting for me. It's, you know, the novelty has worn off after about, you know, the 50th game I played it with white, when I was, you know, between the ages of, I don't know, 10 and 14. The plan here is to play queen c2 and to play against the e4 pawn. This is a decent move because queen c2 is now a lot harder to play because knight b4 is annoying. This is what I meant by this being probably a bit too slow for the plan with the long castling. But I can still try. Maybe he should play rook e8 here, because if he takes on e3 and plays knight c5, I can play queen c2. I can also play b4 even. This is a weird structure, and generally the queen is not on e6. It generally should go to h5 in these types of positions. But even with the queen on e6, this is a very sharp, very interesting type of position. I mainly stopped eating as much, furious. This is a decent move. Yeah, if I finally have to castle kingside, I will feel very sad, but really the whole plan of castling queenside, I think, needs to be consigned to history. My opponent has reacted in a very decent manner, and it just isn't particularly feasible anymore. Yeah, now that, hang on, this move actually allows me to do something slightly clever. If he wanted to move the queen away to develop the bishop on c8, he should have chosen a different square. Although he has knight takes d5 here, bishop takes d4 and knight f4, which is a good reply, I think, if he finds it. And I mean, it's a nice shot, but I think objectively, if he finds knight f4, it may not have been the best move in the position. My position will not be horrible there, but I will have to play very energetically, because if he stabilizes, I will have weaknesses that will be quite hard to defend, actually. Knight f4, g4, rook d4. You know, this I'm reasonably happy about, because then I will have constant play against the e4 pawn, and also the bishop on d4 is a bit of a monster. Although I will need to find some way to activate the bishop on g2. Maybe I should have played g4 first, because now it will become harder. And yeah, thanks Oli for publishing the links. Maybe I should have taken with the f-pawn, actually, because yeah, this bishop looks very, very sad, and allowing c5 is... Maybe I should have fought harder not to allow c5, because now if the knight from c7 gets transferred to somewhere around d5, my position will be less than entirely pleasant. I'm now trying to keep the knight on a6, in particular because my opponent chose not to play knight c7 straight away, a decision I don't entirely agree with. I think the knight needed to be transferred to some useful squares straight away. Including h3 at some point was actually a good idea. I'm unhappy I haven't done that, because yeah, I need to preserve some ideas of one day opening up this bishop, and it has now been you know, very efficiently sealed in by my opponent. But mainly I think I was too reluctant to give up on the dream of castling queenside, which was not the most practical approach in the position I had out of the opening, and that is now preventing me from. Too much time was wasted on that plan, and it didn't materialize. But I am creating some mildly uncomfortable ideas on the queen side here, because queen b6 now will actually lose some material to queen c4 check. So the queen probably needs to go to e7, and then I can play h3, king h2, and black is a bit restricted on the queen side here. And this is just a blunder. And suddenly I am much better maybe winning, because the bishop is now free, and also, well, I won a pawn and now I'm winning more material. So the game probably will end in me winning quite comfortably, but if, let's say, you look at this position and black just plays knight c7 followed up by knight d5, I think black is slightly better here, because this is just such a horribly stupid piece on g2. And because of that, it's very possible that simply playing d3, taking with the queen and developing normally was better, although white probably isn't better here, like castles, knight bd7 followed by knight e5, and yeah, black seems fine. Yeah, I'm not sure why the board theme was changed. It doesn't really hurt my eyes, but the blue board was also fine. I will have a look. But yeah, probably changing it midstream, so to speak, would be a bit weird. So I'm not gonna do that. But I sort of agree with the people who feel that the blue board is a bit lighter on the eyes. In this position, it feels like even something like e4 is worth considering, but there's no reason for me really to hurry with this. I can also play bishop f4, rook c1 looks reasonably attractive. Rook e1 followed by e4 looks fine. Queen c2 followed by e4 looks fine. There's a number of options I can explore here. And queen b3 followed by queen c2 is actually not stupid at all, because the queen on c8 is not such a great piece, although it does give black the option of playing bishop h3, which maybe I should not be allowing. So I will use the fact that the queen is still on b3 to try and force the bishop away from the h3 square, and then play e4. This is a very typical way to try and make progress in the center in these types of positions. It does feel slightly undercooked. If black takes and goes knight d7, I have to watch out for both knight c5 and maybe knight e5, knight g4 as well in some positions. So, or the immediate knight a6. I'm not sure if black actually needed to keep that tension going. I'll play h3 because I want to play bishop e3 next, but I'm kind of wondering if this might be very, very clever not to take on e4 for the time being, because even though I now played h3, which was preparation to play bishop e3 because I stopped knight g4, but with the pawns on d5 and d3 still on the board, I cannot really play bishop e3 because black will have c5 and d4 with a fork, which I think may have been a very valid reason not to do what my opponent has just done. And if I am keeping a reasonably close eye on chat, so if I haven't answered a question for the first 3 times that you asked it, I probably feel like I, you know, don't really feel like answering it today for whatever reason. So please don't continue spamming it in chat. I try to answer most reasonable questions, but some even perfectly reasonable questions would require me to go on a lengthy tangent, would simply take up too much time, and this is why I'm sort of ignoring it. And although I understand that you would like an answer, repeating the question for the umpteenth time is not improving your chances. F5 looks attractive, but on the other hand, there's really no hurry with this move, and I think maybe starting with king h2 is fine. Because I would like to play f5 and follow it up by bishop f4, and then black will play queen b6, I think. And after queen b6, I would like the king already on h2, so that I don't have to worry about the knight from c5 jumping somewhere and the knight on d4 getting pinned. Yeah, and this I had actually seen, and I thought I'm winning here because I have this shot. That was something I predicted might happen, actually. Surprising as it may sound. I do get angry, but not often. I think I get frustrated a lot more than I get angry. Yeah, this would be a very decent move if not for the fact that the knight on c5 falls. If black could actually keep the three pieces, he would maybe even be better, because I generally prefer three pieces to the queen in most cases, unless the side having the queen has a lot of weaknesses to exploit. But here black only has two pieces, and one of them is locked down on h7, so this is not one of those cases. I'm saying probably, it's a bit stupid. I mean, I'm signed up and I should play, but I have some weird, you know, passport related issues which might potentially prevent me from going there. But I probably will play the World Rapid and Blitz in Qatar, and I've just confirmed my participation in the Gibraltar tournament in 2017, so those will be the next two. Gibraltar is looking stunning for next year. I know that it was a weak tournament in the previous years, but if you look at the lineup, they published the provisional top 50 lineup for Gibraltar 17, I think yesterday or maybe 2 days ago, and it's not complete. People are still signing up, and it's gonna be a tremendously strong tournament. So finally we get a game with black. I was wondering where this will happen. Yes, I am. I am going to be covering the remainder of the World Championship, the last 4 games, and potentially the tiebreak if that happens. E4. People almost don't play like this anymore, but it's a very playable approach, I think. Trying to work out how I'm supposed to meet this. I feel I should know, but I don't. If he doesn't play d3 here, I might be in time with this plan, which is what I was sort of hoping for. But if he started with d3, the knight would not be in time to land on e6. This is kind of important here. Because then white would be in time to play bishop e3 before the knight actually appears on c7, force me to waste a tempo on d6, and then white would have time enough to push d3, d4 later in the game. Not that this, wins the game for me or anything, but once you settle on a plan with knight e8, not even getting this setup is a bit of a blow. But white's position is perfectly playable here. Nothing really bad has happened. I wouldn't call it a tantrum trying. I mean, I did touch on this earlier, and yes, I feel that all things being equal, he probably should have stuck around, but I think it's very easy to underestimate just how much pressure these guys are under right now. f5 followed by bishop h6 is a very possible plan in these types of positions, but I'm not sure if white is in time here. And also, the remainder of his pieces is a bit far away from the king, which means that giving mate there will not be at all easy. And now I will simplify, because I do respect that plan, and I feel that it makes perfect sense for me to play against it. Let's discuss this for a bit further and then just completely stop, because I honestly don't like. It's not a productive topic of discussion, but just to wrap up. Yes, it's very unpleasant for the loser of the game to attend the press conference, but that's how it works, and it's an accepted situation which applies to everyone equally. And therefore, you probably expect people to comply, although it's not enjoyable. I think that's what I started with when I answered this question for the first time in this banter. It is very much not a fun thing to do. I think knight d3 was stronger, because although this endgame, it might look completely equal, but I don't think it is, because I will, unless he's in time to very, very sufficiently cover the b3 pawn, bishop e4, c2 might be enough here. But in general, structurally, black is a great deal better here, and this is not a pleasant endgame to be playing. It's a very free, very easy advantage for black here. But it might not be enough for victory, because the bishop, as my opponent correctly shows, the bishop is in time to get to c2, and then I might struggle to make progress. That's the biggest issue here. The position is closed enough. I don't really understand this decision, to be honest. I think, once again, you don't need to give me additional options for the future. I think my opponent is trying for some kind of active counterplay, which is understandable, but I don't think it was the best course of action. It will still be very difficult to exploit, though. There was no real story about black caviar. Sergey mentioned that he had a jar of the thing of the stuff he was dipping into for, you know, uh, as an additional source of energy. And this is a bit of a trap, but nobody's going to blunder rook takes c4, so I don't know why I'm doing it. There's no real story there. He has friends in Azerbaijan. It's quite well publicized that he is on very, very good terms with the Azerbaijani chess people. He was a close friend of Vugargashim, of the late great Vugargashimov. They were very close personal friends, by all accounts, and so he has people who supply him with black caviar. All of this is a matter of record. He said that in interviews. So I don't think there is a story as such. There was a very nice mating idea my opponent could have blundered just now, but he didn't. So I will, maybe if I remember, I will show it after the game. And this is definitely an improvement for me, which is why I was wondering if what my opponent was doing was wise, because, and that's just a blunder. Now I think I should be winning objectively, or close to it anyway. Decided not to comment on the end there to make it as efficient as possible, but the game was effectively over once my opponent started dropping pawns. But this kind of exemplifies that even positions like this, which feel completely locked down, are still very possible to lose once things start going wrong. And the mating idea I mentioned was, in this position, if he plays king h3, I was planning to play f5, and if he makes two passes in a row, which is not a given, I have this idea of rook h4 followed by rook h8 mate. Okay. Declined to answer Tex-Mex's question, so I thought I might perhaps compensate for it by playing him. If he's still there. Okay, good. Whoa. I'm still somewhat unsure what black is supposed to do here. I think Magnus played g6 knight f6 against this system once, and that is a good enough recommendation for me. But I'm not entirely sure what I should be aiming for here. To my eyes, it doesn't at all seem like white is doing particularly badly. And I keep on blundering f6. I should probably at some point stop allowing, not f6, e6. I should stop allowing e6, because already on the previous move e6 looked really, really decent for white. As a matter of fact, I will make this weird looking move just to settle this once and for all. Planning a6, b5 and the knight to e6. No, I'm not depressed at all. I am very, very tired. Because before this, I played in the European Club Cup. Before that, I had about a week at home. after the Russian Super Final, which was a difficult tournament. And I've been doing something almost every day here. The day I did not comment on the match, I went and played the Bundesliga, which was, I think, by far the worst Bundesliga weekend I ever played for the Baden team. Played really horribly in both. Well, that's a simplification, but it was a horrible weekend without going into too much detail. So, yeah, I probably, it's very possible to argue that I may be advised to take it slightly easier on myself. Not sure if I want to play e6. E6 is possible, but I think I'll actually just castle short and keep all of my options open here in terms of potential structures. I do need to react to a4 though, but maybe not right now. I don't want to complain too much because I mean the schedule is very punishing, but I am doing what I like doing, so it was my choice to sign up for this job, and excessive crying about it feels a bit hypocritical, but it is a very, very punishing schedule. I want to play 97, 95. I'm not sure whether that achieves, but I am trying to, create at least some questions for my opponent to answer. And playing before, I mean, I could play before for a number of moves now, but once I play before, he just plays d3, and his structure will be almost impervious to anything I can throw at it. So I try and keep it as fluid and as unsettled as possible for the time being. Now I have the option of playing... No, I actually don't have that option because he will take on b5. I wanted to say I can play d6 here, but that's not actually an option. And I don't really want to allow him to play c4. Maybe I can try this. I'm not sure if this is a particularly good idea, but it might be a bit confusing for my opponent. I do need to create some imbalances in the position. Although, yeah, if he just takes, to be honest, I'm not sure this structure change is such a great idea for me. 94, I was planning to play rook c8 followed up by rook c5, but yeah, I'm not really making much progress here. Maybe I can do this. Scare him into not taking, potentially. And now I want to play king f7 and follow it up by d6. And now I'm suddenly making some progress, but that was because he pre-moved king d2, and that was a bit of a mistake. But yeah, up to here, I think his position is perfectly normal, and he just collapsed because he ran out of time. So we played knight f3, c4, e4. We haven't played d4 yet. Let's see if this works. Chat, please tell Fesmatos what my nickname means. There must be someone in chat who has heard me explain this enough times to be able to rattle off the explanation by heart. So a bit of a social experiment. I actually don't know this theory. I don't know why I entered it. I know this theory exists, But I honestly don't know. I mean, don't remember any details. I think the queen is supposed to go to d2, but even that is not entirely clear. But what my opponent is doing is not correct, of course, because you should not be dropping the pawn on c4 so easily. After queen g2, I think they play knight 7 b6 first, or something. But the pawn on c4 should not be given away for nothing here. That clearly is a mistake. Yes, there is at least someone in chat who knows. It is a billiards term. It means missing the target by a long, long way. Paul Bort, I mean. It's you know, somewhat analogous to, and it's not even close. Used widely on forums. A-neck. And there is a more detailed explanation in chat now. So yeah, it's very nice when you can rely on Santa's little helpers to do these things for you. I've taught you well, grasshoppers. I only played, I think, 4 heroic brawls, and I liked them a great deal. But for me, it's not. I mean, for me, it's hugely minus EV because I don't like playing top tier decks, and playing decks I like playing, I have unfavored matchups a lot. I'm not sure I needed to play c4. I was planning to follow it up by c5, but then I couldn't quite make it work, so I settled on something which is neither here nor there, and now I'm slightly unhappy about it. Yeah, precisely, because now I've weakened the d4 pawn, and I don't even have a particularly comfortable way of covering it. I mean, I can play rook d1, but it's just so boring. I really want to find some way to solve my problems tactically here, but so far none is forthcoming, which is annoying. Let's try this. But frankly, if he just castles, I'm not sure what I'm doing. The position was a lot better than it is right now. Yeah, just castles. I wanted to play bishop c4, but both queen d7 and queen a8 are perfectly playable for my opponent. This has not been played particularly well by myself. I'm still better, but I should have been closer to winning than better. And this position is no longer really obviously winning. If Magnus loses this match, he is of course still comparable to great players like Kasparov and Fischer, and might end up being the greatest of all time, regardless. Fischer simply hasn't played you know, enough title matches to you know, you can claim he went unbeaten, but he only really played 1 match, and that's you know, despite the legend status this match had, is just not enough sample. I'm not, you know, criticizing or disparaging him. I'm just saying that if your criteria for immediately disqualifying somebody from that list because somebody lost a world championship match, then, you know, Fischer just didn't have a large enough sample, and Kasparov lost to Kramnik. Queen b7 was a mistake because now I managed to play knight e5 and I should be doing very, very well again. My biggest issue was that my knight on f3 was stuck because the pawn on g4 was constantly, on g2 was constantly under pressure. But now that this issue is solved, yeah, I wanted to play rook b1 and this is a good move to prevent that, but I might still play rook b1 once I secure a good square for the king, because if I played rook b1 straight away, he may have considered this queen sacrifice. Not with the king on h2 though. Yeah, now it's definitely playable. And in this position, I think I should start with taking and then play queen a5. And this endgame should be a reasonably easy technical win, because the pawn on c6 will just not be defendable, I think. After... Actually, that's not entirely true. He is sort of in time here, which is annoying. I thought I was winning easier than I am here. But we can still trade off one of the f-pawns and win slower. And he should not have allowed this structure change. This makes, you know, all of the future endgames a lot easier winning for me. And now I can even pick up another one. Bishop d3 was a bit inaccurate, but it shouldn't matter, because I can now play bishop b4 and remind him that he has enough weaknesses here for me to just be easily winning. And I can continue just pushing on the king side because he now has no moves. I played one Sicilian, let's play a Pirc. And I got roundly criticized for saying Perk in one of the earlier shows, and I promised to the person who was criticizing me that this will not happen again, and I should, you know, hailing from a Slavic nation myself, I should know it's not Perk, it's Pirc. This is a very good edition of the Grand Prix for white. I don't know why I went for this. People don't seem to be able to let the whole interview thing go. But I'm not gonna touch it again. I think I've said all I wanted to say on the subject. I'm not sure I need to play f5 here, but it does make some strategic sense, because white generally wants to expand with f4, f5 as early as possible, lengthening the diagonal for the bishop on c1, and it just generally is very useful for white in many of these positions. If I manage to get all of my moves in, I do have two bishops and a very fluid, very decent pawn structure, so that should be a good position for me. He probably needs to play a4 at some point. I would maybe even do it on the previous move. And conversely, I'm slightly regretting not playing b5 straight away, because he might correct himself now and play a4. But b6 is not that much worse than b5, to be honest. Actually, b5, knight d5 followed by bishop a5, maybe what he has in mind here. I will start with knight f7 also has its own drawbacks. Yeah, let's play b6. Because now I can meet knight d5 with e6 and there is no bishop a5. If you imagine the same position with the pawn on b5, knight d5, e6, bishop a5, I actually have no squares for the queen which don't allow a fork of some kind, which would be obviously very, very good for my opponent. If he plays b4 here, which seems to be, well, yeah, completely missed that. That's why you start with knight f7. And that now is very awkward. Because if I play queen d7, he will have knight d5. That is why you start with knight f7. Feel very annoyed with myself currently. Because queen d7, knight d5 is so awkward, I actually feel I need to play bishop c8. It's just... this is unbelievably stupid. I mean, if you have to correct yourself to such a degree... this is why I play bishop c8, because in this position I can play e6 and b6 is not hanging. Otherwise knight d5 would have been very, very strong, because there's really no comfortable way for me in that other position to protect my queen side. No, I'm not sure if white is much better. I think my position is still fine, but I gave up 2 tempi for no reason. And that is never a good sign. I'm still doing okay though. But yeah, describing bishop c8 as ugh is, I think, very, very correct. He should play d4 here, and I should have played... I mean, I was planning... yeah, that was me just talking too much and thinking too little. With the knight still alive on f7, I really needed to play d5, d4, but I so did not expect knight f3 that I basically made a move which was sort of pre-moved in my head without thinking, and now I am much worse. Yeah, that was... more than the previous sequence, that was really, really unnecessary. Because this bishop is just completely dead on c8, and had I played d4, bishop b7, it would have been, you know, the pride of my position. Not playing particularly well in this game. It's still not a horrible position, because I did manage to get g6, g5 in, and it will be a lot harder for him now to get something going on the queen side, on the king side. But yeah, not particularly happy with the number of decisions I've taken in this game. My position is still very solid though, and if the bishop gets transferred from, let's say, g7 to e7, I think he should have played bishop c5 there. If the bishop... whoa. That's a huge improvement for me, of course. Because I think my opponent got so, you know, engrossed in getting his pieces to better squares that he forgot that he needs to always have a recapture with the pawn on f4. And sort of he ignored what I was doing completely for a while, and this structural change should be very much in my favor. I should pay attention to g3, g4 though, which is why I played bishop b7 and not the more obvious knight e4 here. The queen is going towards h5. Yeah, now I should be winning, because now I managed to get all of my ducks in a row, and well, I'm winning the queen, but I'm also giving mate, so both of these things are true. My thoughts on classical music. I like classical music, but I don't really know and understand it enough to speak on the subject with any kind of competence. One of my sons is giving his first ever solo concert today, so I'm very excited about that. Tried to play the Alekhine, but my opponent wouldn't let him, so we are playing the Pirates again. This is a weird combination of moves, because generally if white plays what is supposed to be like the classical reply to the Pirates, the bishop belongs on e2, not d3, so I don't know why my opponent chose to place it on d3 here. I am also not sure how to exploit it. This is definitely a misplay though, because you don't want to give me this this structure change is definitely in black's favor, is what I'm trying to say. The knight belongs on c5, which is why I didn't place it on e7. On e7 it really has no moves. Okay. But I have improving moves aplenty here. I don't need to hurry with anything. Maybe I should have played a5, actually. I will now. And now we're only playing on one flank, which makes it, on one hand it makes it easier for my opponent to defend, because he only has to worry about the king side. But on the other hand, I can just completely forget the queen side even exists, and develop a lot of initiative on the king side, knowing that this is sort of the only flank that exists now. And this probably loses material. Or not, I forgot about bishop e2. I thought after bishop e2 I can take on e3, but that doesn't actually win. If I take on g4 and then take on e3, the fact that the queen side is now completely closed will work against me. So I will do something slower for the time being. Because he needs to make an incredibly ugly move, knight d1, after which I think it will be very, very difficult for him to disentangle himself. And here I will have to prepare for a while, but once I do break through with f5, I should be completely winning. Because of how poor white's pieces are, and how untouchable mine are. Who is that Max you all speaking of? There seem to be a lot of mentions of Max in chat, but I don't know who Max is. I'm not sure what my opponent is doing, but I am now playing f5 next move, and that should be plenty. Knight f2 still holds things somewhat together. Although, no it doesn't. I went for this endgame thinking it's very easily winning, but now I'm beginning to wonder if I was a bit hasty. But probably not. Hard to imagine this. Yeah, this is now completely winning, but he could have tried to keep the opposition, but that probably also lost. 2800, that's I think the first time I broke through that particular sound barrier. Ah, it's my move. I should actually make a move. I've done this before. Ah, hello, Max. Good luck to you, Max. Rouser. Yeah, my Rouser knowledge is probably older than Max is. Very, very possibly. I wouldn't at all be surprised if what I know about this opening is dated from before my opponent was born. This type of exchange is a reasonably standard way to meet black playing b5 early. The knight on c3 isn't doing very much, whereas on d4 it's a very useful square. It makes some of black's standard plans somewhat harder to execute. The big question is though what I'm going to do. Yeah, let's say, I'm not sure he needed to play h6 this early, to be honest, but if he plays h6 and then plays h5, which is not something people used to do in the Sicilians, but what they do more and more often these days. It's actually not that easy for white to make progress on the king side. And the idea always is to meet d5 with e5. If he starts with e5, yeah, I did not really take this option seriously, but I should have. Maybe I should have started with king b1 or some other useful waiting move. I'm not sure what rook c8 is, because I think he should have tried to play d5 as early as possible. I don't think he wants to necessarily play knight takes c4 here. Yeah, and I would have played d5 on the previous move, I think. But it's still a very, very serious option. I should have considered more seriously when it was my move. Now it's a bit too late. I think I need to take, and the question is what he takes with. Both of his captures make a decent amount of sense, actually. Knight takes d5, I was planning to play bishop d3, but then for instance knight b4 was becoming an issue that needed to be addressed. And here I need to make a somewhat ugly move like bishop e2 just to keep things under control. I wonder why I can't take on h6. My opponent seems to be very convinced this is not a move I can make. But, there's rook takes c2 towards the end there, yeah. So he is correct on that subject. But, you know, although there was a number of setbacks, I'm still not at all sure I'm doing badly, because it will not be that easy for him to stabilize. He probably wants to go knight d5, to which I need to think of a decent reply. I can play knight e4, but even if he takes, he seems to be doing okay. And also, that's very cute, but it doesn't seem to work for me, sadly. That's very regrettable. I was calculating knight e4, knight d5, queen takes d5, followed by knight f6 check, but that line doesn't seem to work for me. And I'm not worried about knight takes e3 that much, but I am worried about knight b4. to such an extent that I actually sort of half seriously considering playing a2, a3 here, but I think it's way too weird. I don't think that's how you play the Sicilian. But if I play knight e4, even f5 is something I need to be semi-worried about. Not sure which square is better, but I think I need to keep the c4 square under control so as not to get mated soon. Like after queen f2 I was becoming mildly worried about knight c3 check followed by... Actually even here, yeah, that probably wins. And queen f2 because of that was probably a stronger move. Yeah, this is what I missed. I did see the idea of knight c3, but bishop takes a2 is what I missed, and now I think I have to resign pretty much. Yep, well played, Max. There was... yeah, queen needed to go to d3, not e2. Now I realize which square I needed to choose there. The one way to sort of confuse the issue is to play king c1, but he has mate in 2 with checks here, which he should find. Yep. Well played. And in this position I should play queen d3, and I think here this probably no longer works, because in the same position I will have queen d7 check, which is kind of important to have as a resource. So I think if I play queen d3 here, I survive, you know, the immediate tactics, and if I survive the immediate tactics, my position should not be so horrible. But yeah, well played by my opponent. From this moment on, I think his play was very interesting and very accurate, and mine wasn't. Should have perhaps at some point stopped talking so much, because the position was getting a bit too complicated for the laissez-faire approach. If I'm pronouncing that correctly, I don't really speak French. 2800 ha, somebody says in chat, and I fully endorse this message. Hoping, you know, I'm trying to think of something funky to play in reply to this, but nothing comes to mind immediately. Yeah, all the people praising Max for that game are absolutely correct, and it was very, very well played by him. I'm kind of hoping for rook b1 here, but yeah, this is the position I was sort of aiming for. I am not at all convinced it's any good for me, but at least it's a non-standard structure where immediately there's you know, definite prospects for me to be better because my structure is better, sort of in the long-term future. The bishop on c1 is a bit stupid, and the pawn on c4 might eventually become weak. But instead of rook b1, he could have, for instance, included b takes c5, and then I wouldn't have gotten this. I was somehow expecting him not to play before first, but start with rook b1, and then I would have gotten this more or less by force. I think I can just castle here. It does allow bishop h6, but bishop h6 in these types of positions is not really mate. Yeah, bishop g5 actually is a much better move. But I have queen e6 as a way to reply to it. Knight d2 here is probably playable, and once again, I should probably start paying a bit more attention for a while, because yeah, this is not a position you can just play on autopilot. You need to you need to be a bit careful. But once I get the knight away from c6 and hopefully get the light square bishops off, my structural advantages should start telling. I don't think I will go for a rematch, although, you know, it obviously smarts a little to get mated in 20 moves when playing white. But there are people waiting for a game, and turning this into a duel is probably doing a disservice to all the people who are waiting in the queue for a game. I will, I think, play Max again in future Banters if I see him in the list, but I think I have to just accept that I got beat today and not revisit it. That's a sad concession. I mean, maybe he actually needed to do that, but it's not. It must not be a very attractive move to make. And now I can sort of threaten d6, d5 without actually committing to it, at least for the time being. The way his pieces are positioned, if he allows d5 here, he will just get rolled over because you know, the pin along the d file would have been crippling. This is a decent move though. I think, yeah, I may have. I don't know why I was given the c3 pawn. I don't think that was necessary. He could have taken with the queen. Now at least I have a pawn to feel happy about. I am definitely not a scholar, but I try to be a gentleman wherever possible, yes. Calling me a scholar is an insult to scholars everywhere, though. Wanted to play g5, but it doesn't quite work just yet because he can take without taking on f6, and then you know, I might learn to regret that. Although, actually maybe I can. Just not connected with queen takes c6 at all. I want to play rook d6, rook 8, d7, and then go after those pawns. But frankly, it doesn't feel like I'm converting this in any kind of a ordered fashion. Maybe I can play e6 though. No, hang on. If I play e6, yeah, I think I can. Because in all these tactics, I still take on d1 in the end. So I care a lot less about the a7 pawn than I do about having, and I probably should stop rook e7, which is why I'm starting with this move. I now have two connected pass pawns in the center, which are obviously a lot more important than having or not having the pawn on a7. And this actually, I think, gives me enough tempi to start pushing with this pawn, because this way my pawns get faster. I mean, they get further faster is what I'm trying to say. Using the tempi, I win here. To push the pawns all the way to g4 and c3, which normally should have taken me a lot longer. That resignation is a bit premature, but the position is close to winning, if not winning. Whoops. Mistakes were made. Sorry about that, people. I did mention that this is likely to happen at some point. I forget about those little icons. No, I haven't seen that YouTube video, Kali. Is it any good? Bishop d2. I don't know what this is. Followed by knight c3 and queen c1, I guess. What is going on? I think maybe it was a misclick of some sort, but what could it have been a misclick for? I am reluctant to say. Or maybe my opponent just feels that he is so much better than me in chess that he can just give me a tempo and just play black. Because what he's doing basically by now is that he is playing the Reti opening against me with colors reversed. Okay. I will stop looking for rational explanations for what's going on in this game because I don't really understand any of it. That was win trading is, I think, the term is for games like this, right? That was a win trade. Thanks, Jorge, but I don't really need people to win trade with me. I'm not trying to climb here in particular. I signed a great number of mugs yesterday, so yeah, it's very much still a thing, Philip Whitaker. The most memorable tournament is very difficult to name because you need to sort of make the criteria a bit narrower. In terms of my personal experience or in terms of, tremendous organization or... I think Jan will sign mugs eventually. I'm sure he will, yeah. There was a discussion yesterday whether there should be mugs which are signed by both of us, or there should be separately mine signed by me. Mugs signed by me and mugs signed by Jan. I think eventually there will be separate mugs. I'm an Arsenal supporter for my sins. That one isn't really starting, so let's move on to the next one. I was about to answer that question and then it was spammed again in the same chat, and now I'm probably not going to. Feeling very vindictive today. I played 2 games against Josh. One when the Kasparov Chess School visited the States. I think it was in '89, maybe '88 even. And Josh was barely visible from behind the chair, and he drew against me. I was maybe 2 years older than he was, I think. And then we played in the World Under 18 Championships in Szeged, 94 in the final round, and I beat him with black and became the world champion. For me personally, I think it has, it has to be the first Russian championship that I won, because that was such a huge big deal for me, obviously. I was sort of hoping to play castles after e5, but then I couldn't quite believe it was working. Castles, no, c, whoa. That actually, I will have a somewhat sad looking bishop on a7, but all of my other pieces will be so excellent that I think I'm doing quite well here. The The problem for white is that he's so undeveloped that I will play castles and then d6 and just blow up his center, and then the bishop will actually re-enter the game, but the damage white has done to his position here is probably irreparable. That's a hard word to pronounce after a week of streaming. d6 he probably should castle long, and but I'm still almost completely winning there, so I don't really care, because I have bishop e6 and he has no really good way to meet it. It's possible to, I mean, for a chess player of my strength, and I generally, you know, I'm not boasting in general, but it's relevant to the answer to your question, Mike. It's easier for me than it is for some of you, I guess, because I can follow what Boris says in his books without, you know, putting things on board. My sort of reading comprehension when reading chess literature is still very, very good, and I feel like the point gets across to me without me having to pause every 5 seconds to make sure I understand the variations provided or the concepts provided. But yes, I understand that for players who are somewhat weaker, it might be difficult to read books as complicated as Boris's books are, you know, in the time frame that I did. Flores says, as I mentioned a number of times, I am very far from the strongest Hearthstone player among top chess players, let alone chess players in general. Like Jan Nepomniachtchi, who introduced me to the game, is immeasurably better than I am. Evgeny Tomashevsky has been legend in, I think, the past 6 seasons. So I have a very nice shot here, but it leads nowhere. But I think I still need to play it just for, you know, the sheer aesthetics of it. If he finds queen e4 here, this is actually a wasted tactic. And there were stronger moves in that position, but it's just so nice to play this that I can't stop myself. But yeah, if he goes queen e4, I really, really should not have done this. which is an issue. Almost played queen a6 here. I should sharpen up. Queen a6 would have been ill-advised. And not even that stupendous. Lots of people play Heroes 3. I haven't actually played Heroes 3 in a while. Yeah, now that I've given my opponent those 2 tempi, he's not even doing that horribly. Instead of queen d3, there was a number of moves there which was quite strong, and yeah. But I just find it so hard not to take these shots because they just appeal to my aesthetic sense. Now it's a dry technical position. I'm seriously better, but there will be some issues because his pieces are reasonably well coordinated, and I still need to fight for the d file. I think maybe he thinks he's winning a piece with f5, but he's not, because I have queen g5 check. He should not have given me the d file for free. Playing rook hd1 was a lot stronger there. it's a reasonable move, but I can, well, to a large degree ignore it. I could actually even take. I forgot I could take. Because after queen e8 I had queen f8 at the end of that variation. Kind of feel like I should be giving mate here somehow. Rook d2, he has rook e2 though, which is regrettable. But I can collect some material for the time being, because the king is perfectly safe with his pawn on g7 blocking his own attack. Looking for people I don't recognize in the list, but it's hard to find completely new nicknames. Is it time for the Dutch chat? Or I haven't played the Dutch in a while in these streams, I think. Seems like I missed some discussion on whether people deserve or do not deserve to be called world champions. And yes, what someone said there in chat is absolutely correct. If you win the world championship, you are the world champion. Personal tastes and likes and dislikes don't enter into it. If Sergey wins the match, he is the world champion, and there should be no ambiguity about it. The argument that Magnus is a better ambassador for chess is maybe the one you could be making, but that's a whole different point. I didn't want to play g6 because then he would play knight g4 and I would have to play something like knight c5, allowing him to take on f6 and double my pawns on the f file. Yeah, I'm not sure what this is. But I will continue making moves that I was planning to make and see what transpires. That was something I was planning to do if he just ignored my plan altogether. Now I should be very, very happy with my position because knights cannot take en passant. And if you haven't seen the absolutely hilarious en passant video, we didn't record it on purpose, but it did end up getting recorded during one of the live commentary sessions with Jan. That was fantastic. That was, I think, some proper comedic gold. I think I need to play e4 because if I castle here, I think he probably plays e4 himself, although I have a decent attacking chances if I play f4 there. Both seem very, very decent for me here. Let's castle for the time being. Maybe he starts with knight d2 and then I will play e4, and that's obviously an improvement for me because the knight doesn't go to d4 in those lines. And yeah, I still get incredibly annoyed when people refer to, for instance, the kind of chess, the kind of chess Sergey has been showing in this match, and his defensive efforts when they are being described as being lucky. It annoys me a great deal. The amount of skill that is required to hold positions like he had against Carlsen in games 3 and 4. The amount of skill required for that is immense, and describing it by luck is just as luck is just offensive, frankly. I'm not sure what this is. I'm not sure why my opponent is sealing off the queen side. Now my plan is to play bishop e5, swing the rook over to h6, and switch to some sort of a direct assault on the king side. There were two peanuts walking down the road, as we all know. This is actually a decent choice, but it may have come a bit too late. I would have tried playing f4 a lot earlier if I were in my opponent's shoes, because here he might actually end up being under severe attack. After ef3, even rook takes h2 is not utterly ridiculous, but probably playing f4 first is a better idea. And after rook takes f3, although once again I probably should pay a bit more attention to what's going on, because if I play f4, he has queen e4, he has also rook df1 as an option. This is not as clear cut as I originally thought, so I will make a useful waiting-ish move for the time being. Sergey is a very, very friendly and good-natured guy in person, yes. I feel like my opponent is kind of really taunting me to play f4 here, and f4 is very difficult to resist, but I think resist it I will, at least for an additional move. I can also go g5, g4 first, because I would like to wait until he goes e4 and then play f4. That would be a lot stronger, but having said all that, having given the the long speech, I just can't restrain myself here. It just feels weird not doing this. Pretty sure Alex is trolling there with the Polborta questions. Whoa. I just finished explaining how I would play f4 only after e4, and he does it with a loss of tempo. That cannot be right. But now I can probably switch to just converting from a purely technical standpoint. Don't really need anything fanciful anymore. A ton of material up, no counterplay. Don't really need to look for forced mates or anything. I see some bullet challenges in the list. I normally don't see them, but since I've noticed one or two in the list today, I will say on the record for all of you that might do it. I am not playing bullet. I am nowhere near young enough for bullet. That's just something that is not happening. Not sure if this is such a clever idea, to be honest. But allowing bishop f4, I think people who play this with white, and this I think I may have blundered the d5 pawn here. He could have given a check on b5 and just taken this pawn, I feel. And that may have been a decent idea for him. And he can still do it now, actually. I should have considered this for a bit longer. Because my position now is really, really horrible. Like, I may have to take with the king now. It might objectively be better than taking with the knight, with the f knight, and playing without the d5 pawn. But as you can probably imagine, this is not a bed of roses either. Goodness me. These are the choices, eh? Either a position where I'm just a pawn down for nothing, or a position where I have a king on d7, also pretty much for nothing. And I have to choose between the two. Let's go with this. I mean, it's absolutely abhorrent, but of the options presented, it feels like the slightly more comfortable one. If I get rook a d8 and king c8 or something like that, I might not be totally lost. This is a weird waiting move. I'm not sure what this is about. Maybe he wants to play bishop h4 if I go rook d8. Once again, perhaps paying attention to what's happening on the board might not be the worst idea in the world. Now it seems like he's he's playing very well, actually, because my plan to meet knight d4 on the previous move was to play knight f3 check, but I got so confused by him not playing it there that I've sort of decided to ignore it for the future. After knight f5 I will be forced to play bishop b8. But if I gain a sufficient development advantage, I might not care all that greatly about losing the g7 pawn. This will probably end up losing me the a7 pawn, but once again, I don't care a great deal, because it also wins me a lot of time. After knight b5, I can make an argument for playing a6, knight d6, queen d6, but it's sad. And I don't want to do it. And now he wants to do both knight f5 and knight b5, and I probably need to defend against that now. If I play bishop b8, which was my original idea here, he can play knight f5, and there's a very unpleasant threat of knight e7 check, which makes me lean towards pretty much anything else. But yeah, I mean, it's not surprising that my position is very, very bad here, because you cannot really play this opening, you know, this horribly and not suffer. I'm also running very, very short on time, so that will be an additional source of misery. But if I don't lose on the spot right now, I might be able to somewhat stabilize, play knight c6 or something, and pretend that my position now is only ever so slightly unpleasant compared to what it used to be. But I'm gonna lose on time, so none of that is really relevant to anything. And now I think I might not even be doing it at all badly, but losing on time will be decisive. That probably is just wrong, because I'm not gonna, these tactics probably will not work out for me, but maybe they will, I don't know. It's hard to judge. Whoops. Yeah, that was the decisive loss of 3 seconds. I actually won this on time. That's very surprising. But yeah, that game was somewhat marred by first me completely misplaying the opening, and then both of us having to play on very low time. I haven't seen your unnice words, Lenska, so I probably, the correct course of action for me would be not to scroll up to see what you said, and then I will not get horribly upset. I think one chance is slightly over pessimistic about my expected value from Blitz games here. Let's try this. I haven't played this in a while. Русскоязычная версия планировалась, но неизвестно, что с ней происходит в данный момент. Ничего не могу сказать в точности. No, I don't think it's my clicking skills, Marina. It's just that my opponent was very slow there for no real reason. I'm probably as slow as usual, maybe somewhat slower, because I am, as I keep on mentioning, hoping for sympathy. I am kind of tired. I was actually, fun trivia fact, I was actually involved in acquiring the chess24.ru domain name years ago. That was a funny story because negotiations needed to go through an old school friend of mine, because it was felt that if I was the one contacting the guy who was by that time in possession of the domain name, and he realized he was speaking to me personally, the price probably would have gone up. But I guess there's not enough Russian language content being produced for the Russian version to be live for the time being. Playing bishop e2, following it up with bishop d3 is of course not very critical, so my position is reasonably comfortable now. Don't know of any stories, funny or otherwise, connected with Wei Yi. I don't really know Wei Yi. I played a number of games against him, but he doesn't speak a lot of English and we didn't socialize anyway, so no, sorry, no stories about Wei Yi forthcoming. What I think about the poison pawn is that it's a lot of very hard work these days. The theory, I mean, it's always been incredibly theory heavy, but theory has progressed so very far there that the amount of work needed to play it properly is unbelievable. And now I should be, well, in the range from slightly to very seriously better. Probably, whoa, d takes e5. People generally just believe me when I make mistakes because they think I don't, but I do, and this was a huge one. He should have included d takes e5, and that also is a reasonably large mistake. Queen takes e4 was completely missed by me. I mean, queen c4 check, not queen takes c4. Since the queens are coming off anyway, I'm trying to initiate all of these trades on my terms, so to speak, not on his. I would like to start with e takes d4, but I think he will take on b6, so I need to evaluate this properly. Because if I play b5, he takes on e5 and he plays c4, and a lot of pawns might come off on the queen side, which is not something that's in my favor. But if I take on d4 and he takes on b6, it still feels like there will be a lot of material coming off. Maybe I should just play something slow, like rook b8. Give him more options. Checkmate on g2 was the plan, but queen c4 was a check. So queen takes g2 mate would have been an illegal move I couldn't really make. Yep, because it was check. That's the long and the short of it. Yeah, and this one I probably will lose on time, because this opponent feels very, very fast. He's not going to give me the same clicking advantages the previous one did. Yeah, no chance here. I should just resign. If people want to flag me in this position, I can't really stop them. I tried teaching my kids chess, but they didn't particularly like it, and I wasn't that disappointed with that outcome, so I stopped. It was around when they were maybe 6, somewhere around that age. I keep on mixing up move orders in this position, and I end up with positions I really dislike, but this is what I generally try to do here. Playing g6 before even playing d5 and giving white all of those options which he might consider very tasty, like e5 immediately, knight c3 followed by e5, all of these additional options which I, at the very least should occupy his time. Well, I can only say how I became fluent in English. I read a lot of, I read a lot more in English than I do in Russian. I watch a lot of English and American TV and movies, but mainly TV these days. And yeah, this is not a nice position. I should have done something else. I somehow felt my opponent will be lured by ideas of trapping this knight on e4, but if he just exchanges this as he has done, yeah, my position is just not very good. So, immersing yourself in the culture, and also lots and lots of practice if you can find it. And then it happens on its own pretty much, without really. I never really worked at it systematically in my life, on English, I mean. There was an argument for playing knight e4 first, but I think I will end up having to play a5 anyway, so I wanted to. I didn't really think it made a great deal of difference which of those two moves I started with. The position is still incredibly unpleasant, like rook c1, knight c5 in particular. There are other strong moves as well available to white here, but rook c1, knight c5 in particular leads to positions where my counterplay is very difficult to name. D takes c5. That's a bit surprising because, you know, white is doing so well strategically that I'm not even sure I'm better here, but it's a healthy pawn I won. So at least now I'm suffering for something. It's no longer just a free ride for my opponent. And if he allows me to play e6, e5 next move, I will be, well, close to winning probably, because once once the pawn is gone from d4 and black starts straightening out in the center, it's very, very difficult to stop the avalanche here. White just gets generally somewhat rolled over, although this maybe wasn't the best move. He can now play f3. Once again, probably not the cleanest conversion, but I am a pawn up. I have two bishops, and the center continues rolling down the board. So it will require more misplays than I've shown so far not to win this, and now I win more material. But yeah, if you just take with the rook here, I was planning to play a3. He plays b3. I have some trumps for the endings. You know, in the endings, maybe I will have some counterplay against the a2 pawn. But this is very far from the ending. My position, you know, in strategic terms, is just horrible. And maybe my opponent was worried about knight takes d4 here, but that almost loses, I think. My position will just collapse here. So yeah, dc5 was a bit of a mystifying decision. And I think I'll play one last one and call it a day, because I need to go back and prepare myself for the co-op. I don't want to be completely brain dead by the time I have to play with Shady. You know, Shady's chat is very, very demanding. Don't really want to shame myself in front of them. This is an opening I've been playing with white for the last, feels like 20 years, with varying success, but I feel like I understand sort of what goes where, but there's more and more theory connected with this, and I'm not sure I'm entirely up to date. These plans with h6, g5 and queen c7 are very, very interesting and very ambitious from the black side, because play becomes very complex. There's a lot of varying structures you can encounter. I'm not even going to react to this, because I feel that if he actually takes on e5 twice, I will get a tremendous amount of counterplay in the center anyway. Well, not counterplay, but play for a measly pawn. So Yeah, I'm going to be the third co-op today, stupendous. A knight should go to d4, but I'm not sure which one. Let's play this knight to d4. I'm not 100% certain it's the correct one. It will still not be all that easy to prove I have enough compensation. Bishop g7 was a strong move. I uh, misevaluated that, but even here, I do have a very, very serious amount of play. Like my next move in many cases will be knight b5 followed by knight d6 check, and then I will have. I mean, the black king will be somewhere where I can play against it. And now that my opponent has taken on f3 first, I can even play rook e1 here, which looks very, very strong. Should be completely winning, actually. I can follow it up with playing bishop g4, and bishop f5 is impossible. My opponent needs to play queen d8. That really is the only move, and now I can... rook e6 looks fantastic, for instance. Yeah, looks like a crushing advantage now. And this is just mate. Queen takes f6, queen d4 is mate on board. All right, I think this is a reasonable position to wrap up the stream with. You don't get positions like this very often. So, thanks for watching, everybody. This has been fun. Congratulations to Max, who played a very nice game against me. But in general, I think this was a reasonably well played stream, and I enjoyed it, even though according to chat I look completely brain dead. And those of you so inclined, there will be a co-op run in about 2 hours. I'm not sure exactly at what time, but third run of today. For those of you who want to watch, there's a link somewhere in the stream. So with that, I will cry off. I'll see you all tomorrow for the 9th game of Carlsen Karekin. Thanks and bye.